Hi, it's Carol from Allergy Free Living, and I'm going to show you the gluten-free cookie mix, and that was in my pantry. So if you want to familiarize yourself with that, you can go to the first video. Now, this one, you can add any kind of things in here. I'm going to use chocolate chips, which is what I've already showed you because I have soy allergies. So the 53% dark chocolate Nestle's. This is what I use for these cookies. And it also calls for not much, actually. This is why I like these packages, because there's not a whole lot that you have to do to it, but like it asks for a stick, 8 tablespoons of butter. Now, here's a tip. This is what I do. It's up to you. I use, instead of a stick, which is 8 tablespoons, I use 4 tablespoons of butter, and which is a quarter of a cup. And then I use a quarter of a cup of shortening. And I showed the shortening in the pantry because I do have soy allergies, and so there's no soy in this. So that's what I do instead of using all butter. Don't get me wrong, I love butter and it's really delicious in cookies. But the problem is that if you use all butter, when you cook the cookies, they really flatten out. So I'll show you the result of what it looks like when you use half butter and half shortening. So this is what the recipe calls for. An egg. And remember, when you're doing gluten-free cooking, I'm not really sure why, but everything should be room temperature, including the egg. And let's say you decide, oh, I want to make this. It's just a spur of the moment. That's okay. You take the egg and you put it in hot water. And then, for like a minute, and then just feel it. And when it feels like warm to the touch or room temperature, you can tell, then that's okay. But they like everything room temperature, water, milk, whatever you're doing. They like it room temperature. It's supposed to be better for gluten-free cooking. So what they call for, I said the butter, a large egg, and water, and then 1 to 3 cups of add-ins. And I said my add-in is going to be the chocolate chips and the cashews, which, I ground them up. Now, what I did to save time was I put stuff in here already, because what your directions say, and that's why I always say, remember, read your directions twice and only have to make it once. When you read the directions, it tells you to put in half the cookie mix, which I already put in here, and then you put in all the things I said, the butter, the eggs, and the water. And they, with that mix on the bottom, they want you to mix it all together. So that's already, like I said, that's already in there. So that's what I'm doing now. But I wanted to show you, for each video that I do, I want to show you what I use instead of the flour or instead of the milk. So the substitutes for me are the things that I show you. That way you'll know. But this is already gluten-free, and that's what's great. As I told you, if you go to the website for each one of the companies that I show you on my must-have pantry, they have so many great, products. So now, after everything is mixed, they tell you right here to then add the rest of your mix. And they tell you to add that in. And then continue to mix it until you know what cookie dough should look like, and that's what you do. But just to remind you, this is what the chocolate chips look like. They're a little bit bigger than the typical chocolate chips, like the regular Nestle's chocolate chips are a little smaller, but that's okay. They're bigger, and I like that. Okay. There you go. All right, now this is done. Now, typically it tells you to, take your scoop and scoop it in, but I'm going to do that. But this is another tip that I've learned with chocolate chip cookies when you're putting in butter and the shortening. It tells you to put it in the refrigerator for an hour, and it sets your dough so that it just doesn't, fall. So let me put this in the refrigerator. And voila, I have an extra one made to save time because nobody wants to wait an hour. So what I do is, here's your scoop. You got all kinds of scoops. I use this. And I just scoop it. I kind of like to make it flat. I would say, some people use a teaspoon. This is probably a teaspoon and a half. You see that? I'd say it's probably a teaspoon and a half. But it still cooks the 8 minutes. But I don't know what your oven is. So, you have to always watch the cookies. I always cook my cookies at least 3 minutes less than what it says. I put the timer on and I always check it because you know what? Sometimes if the oven is not right and you're not checking, you're going to burn the cookies. And again, the smell of the burnt bottom on a cookie is really not a good thing. So these will make 24 cookies. You'll see that on the box itself. And like I said, they make some really, really good products. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make the products that I showed you in the pantry because I think it's important for you to see what I have in there. Now, maybe that's not, some of the things aren't things you use, and that's fine. But I want you to see that, yes, you can make your own cookies. If you have your own chocolate chip recipe, you just have to substitute the flour with the gluten-free flour. And like I said, for me, the flour I would use if you were going to use your own chocolate chip recipe, the flour I would use was the Nestle. That I have that right in the pantry, the must-see pantry, and the Nestle Perfect Flour Blend. That's what I would use for this because it's a little. The blend is softer, whereas like the Pamela's pancake or baking mix, it's a little thicker. If you're going to make biscuits, the Pamela is great. But when you want to make cookies, you want them lighter and fluffier. So, and those are the things that I'm going to try to show you so you can see. We've got one left, and I'm just going to toss him in here. You really do like to have them equally spaced. I'm going to show you. Excuse me. You want to have them equally spaced so that these don't really spread out because of how I made cut the butter and the shortening and use that. So they're not going to spread very much. So, all right, let's put this in the oven. And like I said, it's usually for 8 minutes, and I'm going to put it in for 6, and then I'm going to check it out and see how it looks. But of course, for time, I made some of them so that you didn't have to sit and wait for 8 minutes. This is what they look like. You see how perfect they sit, how very nice that looks. And look at the back. You see how the back is golden brown. There's a big difference. And I like it because it's got kind of like a little mountain on the top. And that look at how easy, how that really opens up. So good enough to eat, right? I'm not going to do it. I won't eat it in front of you, but they are good. And I just wanted to show, like, this one's a little taller, but the inside is still the same. It's not ooky chewy, it's just right. So there you go. Here's today's dessert. I haven't done desserts, so I was reminded that I had to do it. I love desserts, and I have a lot of great desserts that I'll be introducing to you, but I did want to use what we have in the pantry so you can see how easy. And once you have these things, even though this isn't in the pantry, if you watched me, you've seen me throw it in your pantry. Well, thank you very much for watching this, and I hope you make it and enjoy. Bye.